for Monday, October 17th, 2022. It is now 8:02 p.m. If everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening, and Madam City Clerk, could you confirm that we have a quorum for this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum for this evening. We have council members Steph, Wolfley, Boffo, Gardner, and Harrison, and Mayor Adams in presence in council chambers, and via virtual teams, we have council member Ndebumadu.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. At this time, to the council members, I'll call for any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Councilwoman Harrison?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add to the agenda discussion on C County Resolution 121-2022 that deals with Mill Branch Crossing and creation of the Mill Branch Revitalization Tax Credit District.
Okay.
I'd like to second that.
Moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, at this time, we will look at moving over to citizen participation. Do we have anyone signed up for citizen participation, Madam City Clerk?
No, Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up this evening.
Okay, thank you. We were scheduled for a presentation this evening, but we will not do that this evening, and hopefully we can have it at a later time.
Okay.
And we will now move on to the city boards and committees, and I'd like to have Mr. Day come up. We've approved him already, and that we just need to do the oath at this time. Would you please raise your right hand? I state your name.
I, Robert Day,
Do swear or affirm
do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will
and that I will
be faithful and bear true allegiance
be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
and to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of and member of and state the committee.
execute the office of a member of the Bowie Advisory Planning Board
Okay. According to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and laws of this state.
and laws of the state.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. I have something for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thanks for not changing your mind between when you approved you.
Thank you very much.
Today, here you go, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
At this time, we will now move on to council announcements. Any council members with any particular announcements they'd like to make right now?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem? Oh,
I do have one.
Councilwoman, please.
Thank you. I just have one announcement. I'm excited to announce the grand opening of Liberty Sports Park. It will take place on Sunday, October 23rd from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and will include a short program as well as team scrimmages, practices, and other activities. The word is out about Liberty and the fields are booked through the end of the year. Liberty Sports Park features 10 lit fields, 6 turf, and 4 grass to host adult youth lacrosse, field hockey, football, soccer, rugby, and ultimate frisbee tournaments. It's located at 220 Prince George's Boulevard near 214 and 301 in Upper Marlboro, located right adjacent to South Lake. So we hope you all will come out and join us on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. This is our last meeting before early voting, and our community always is blessed to show out. In the primary election, Bowie was the highest in Prince George's County and was the second highest in the state in terms of turnout, in terms of early voting. So I just wanted to remind folks that starting on October 27th through November 3rd, we will be early voting here for the Maryland general election, and in-person voting once again for the final date will be on November 8th. So just a reminder to our community to continue to show out no matter which side you're on.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And to add to that, I believe tomorrow is the last day that you can register to vote in the state of Maryland. So please, if you are not registered to vote or you know someone who isn't, please encourage them to do so by tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just have one thing I'd like to add. Thank you so much. Sorry about the blurriness in my video. I don't know what's going on, but I'll fix that shortly. I just want to apologize to my colleagues and the residents who are watching this evening for my lack of presence in council chambers. My stomach is really, really bothering me this evening. I think I ate something bad, so I just want to apologize to everyone for the lack of my presence inside of council chambers. And then also just to emphasize something that Councilwoman Harrison shared about Liberty Sports Park. There's been a number of residents expressing concerns over our lack of sports electives and sports opportunities and activities within the city of Bowie. So I just really want to highlight and emphasize how monumental and how great that Liberty Sports Park is going to be for our community, because for those residents who have been asking for something like this, here is an opportunity where it is being provided, where Prince George's County has invested in this particular location, along with many other partners. And it is a beautiful park. It looks great. It has a lot of space for different types of sporting activities. So I just want to highlight that for a lot of our residents who have been sharing concerns around our lack of sporting electives in the city, and talk about how great that will be. So thank you, and hope to see you on Sunday.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. Moving on, we will now go to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, city manager. We will now go on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second to accept the consent agenda as listed. All in favor, please vote with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor.
Aye.
Abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. We will now go on to the old business, and that's detailed site plan number 22016, the Dash-In Convenience Store and Gas Station.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Joe Meinert, the City of Bowie Planning Director, and this particular detailed site plan, DSP 22016, was reviewed by the council on your September 6th agenda. Council members had specific questions that the representative for the developer, Dash-In Food Stores, Inc., could not answer at that time, and council had asked them to come back at such time as they had answers to the council's questions. And so we did receive a letter dated September 12th from Attorney Dan Lynch, who is the representative of the applicant, and Mr. Lynch is here tonight to make a brief presentation and to follow up with those answers to your questions. Mr. Lynch.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and for the director Dan Lynch, here on behalf of Dash-In Food Stores, Inc. Here tonight with regard to the proposed, for the detailed site plan for proposed Dash-In Food Store to be located at Heritage Boulevard and 301 in Bowie. We took her through our presentation last time we were here. I'm not quite sure whether there's any specific portion of that presentation you'd like to go back to and talk about. But as indicated, we're proposing to develop the site with a gas station, convenience store, and car wash. The convenience store will be a Dash-In food store. The square footage of the project is approximately 4,000 square feet. We were here last time, I took you through the particulars of the layout, and primarily access will be from Heritage Boulevard. This is, just a note, this is a site where the Applebee's is located. That Applebee's will be raised and replaced with the proposed gas station. When we were here last time, there were a number of questions which the council had. Some of those, obviously, we weren't in a position to answer because they kind of went outside what normally is addressed as part of detailed site plan, although there were important questions. Both the council and my client felt that it would be advantageous for us to put something in writing to the council, and then, if you'd like, we came back to see if there's any additional questions. With me, if there's any questions, again, I have Mr. Brian Fenwick with the Wills Group, as well as Renee Montgomery. We're all here tonight to answer the questions that you have, if they haven't been addressed in the letter that we submitted to you. I think some of the questions obviously went to, why a gas station on this site? Why is a gas station being put into place of a eating and drinking establishment? And again, we went back to the owner of the property who we've negotiated the lease with, and he told us a little bit about who he spoke to, where he ended up, and although he spoke to some other fast food type restaurants, he didn't have a lot of interest from any sit-down restaurants, and didn't have a lot of interest from any retail users. He did have interest for us, and we sat down for approximately 6 months, Renee, to negotiate the agreement with him, and that's how we ended up here today. But there were a lot of conversation with them, and we feel that the answer that we gave you, is based upon the discussions we have. I should also note, which I did not note during our last presentation, I thought was important to note, is that one of the reasons why we're in this position here today is that the lease with Ruby Tuesdays is coming to an end. And the owner wanted to be in a position prior to the expiration of that lease to have another tenant in place under construction so they can move forward on this site. So again, that's, I think, one of the questions this council had for us last time, and we did go back to the owner and got a little more detail as how we arrived at us as the tenant on this spot, as opposed to some other alternatives which could have come here. I think you also had some questions for us with regard to our DEI program. I'm not real familiar with it, so I thought it'd be best that I just take what we have and I attached it to that I sent you, and kind of gives you a detailed analysis of that program. We were hoping on having Rama Alexander with us here tonight, but she was unable to make the meeting. But if there's any specific questions with regard to that program, we're happy to share her contact information with you, and you can reach out to her and ask your specific questions that may not be addressed in this letter, and she'll be happy to discuss those with you. The next question I think that you had, which we addressed in the letter, I think you wanted a market analysis. Again, as I think Mr. Meinert could point out to you, some situations in the land use and development process in Prince George's County, there's a specific requirement that you submit a market analysis to demonstrate a need for your project. We don't have that in this particular situation, so we don't have a document that we necessarily would share with the public. But I can tell you that, and as I indicated during the last meeting, Ms. Montgomery and the other members of the Dash and Food Group, as well as the Wills Group, sat down and did a very specific analysis of this site. And then when they do that analysis, they look at issues such as pass-by traffic on a major roadway. They look at access. They look at the overall market itself in terms of how many other competitors are in that market. And they also look at what they know they can bring to the market in terms of bringing something to competition. And this is based upon 95 years of experience in the market. And they looked at this site, everything came back positive. But even in some situations when all that information comes back positive, if the folks, the Wills Group, with their experience, deal doesn't work, they're not going to move forward with it. In this particular situation, this site checked off all the boxes. Not only did it meet some of the basic things they look at when they're looking at a particular site. But they knew in their gut, based upon that 9-5 experience, that this is a site that they can make work. So anything other than that in terms of what we normally look at in terms of, they have so many fueling positions in the market, they have so many stations. That's not part of that analysis because that's not required for this application. But we did do a fairly specific analysis, just looking at normal site constraints, looking at visibility, looking at traffic, looking at population, and did that analysis and figured out that this is a great site and they think they can be successful here. I think you also had questions with regard to the philanthropic activity we are proposing for Bowie. As we said in the last meeting, we've not had any specific conversations with the city itself. But we are more than willing to sit down with any members of the council, with any representative of the city, to talk about what can we bring to the city in terms of some giving in this area. Are there any programs you'd like to look at? Before we came in here tonight, Ms. Montgomery did mention we have an open space program. Is there any open space areas that, for instance, need to be refurbished you'd like to, kind of like have us designate and work with the city on improving? Those are things that we can bring to the city of Bowie. So there's a lot that we can do. We've done it in other jurisdictions, and we're more than willing to sit down with this city, its members, its representatives, and see what we can bring to make some improvements to the city. So again, we are more than willing to answer any questions that you have with regard to this project. If I have not answered any questions as much as you'd like, again, I have Ms. Montgomery, Mr. Fenwick here tonight. Mr. Fenwick obviously is a little bit more into the construction side. He'll answer any questions that you have with regard to construction, with regard to other sustainability programs that we have with regard to construction of this site. And then Ms. Montgomery can answer any other questions about the will script that you may have. But hopefully between our talk tonight, as well as the letter that I submitted into the record, I hope this has addressed any questions or asked any questions you may have with regard to this project. With that, again, if there are any further questions, we're here to answer those. Thank you very much.
City Clerk, is this up for any action this evening, INC?
I believe so, Mayor. The last meeting, there was just a discussion, and they wanted council wanted answers from the applicant, so there was no vote taken last time on it, because they wanted these items answered first.
Because my question also goes to, do we need to open another public hearing?
We had the public hearing that night and closed it, so now it's just for council to have received the answers from the applicant, and then the motion.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were on point there. Thank you. All right, I would open it up to council for questions. I see Michael first, and you, Mayor Pro Tem, and then you, if you have any.
And myself as well, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go right ahead.
Everyone. I just want to say thank you to the applicant for taking the time to come back tonight.
Sure.
I know you much rather would have had a decision at our last meeting. I just want to say thank you for doing your due diligence, for answering the questions. I was satisfied by what I heard. I think staff also kind of reached out and got some answers as well. My big thing was just making sure that we'd kind of taken that step of doing our diligence, understanding why the previous business failed, why we were looking at something different from what the previous concept was. And it makes sense to me, and I'm happy to move forward with this tonight. And I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Oh, is it my turn, Mr. Mayor? Oh, sorry, I can't hear. I'll just go.
He said yes.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Can you see me? Does my camera work now?
Yes, if you have any questions?
Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back and presenting in front of council again. Very much so appreciate the time. I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding, but I'm not sure that I feel like you answered any of the real questions that we asked before the last session. When I look at the response and honestly the synopsis that you just presented on, and I'm not looking to be difficult here, I'm just very stern on what I feel like I just heard. Number one was to provide a market study or additional information as to why this site was chosen. I understand from a competitive advantage that you probably wouldn't want to provide the ins and outs and the details of your market study, but you also aren't really highlighting any points from a construction perspective or from a competitive advantage as to why you chose this location. And even if you didn't want to be specific, there aren't even general highlights as to why you feel like this location is appropriate. And I can understand you might say, well, hey, we're only here to talk about a detailed site plan. But I think in order for us to really discuss a detailed site plan, then it's really important for us to really understand it's really important for us to understand some of the questions that we asked before, which caused us to not vote on this then. Number two, on the philanthropic activities, willing to be able to sit down with council members. I understand that, but you guys haven't really reached out to any council members, so I'm just a little confused on that response, but I guess going forward, that's what you'd be willing to do. And then on number 4, where it says provide additional information regarding diversity and inclusion within the company, maybe the question was misunderstood. It was not diversity and inclusion regarding the company, because what you provided was already on your website. It was diversity and inclusion pertaining to this particular location and some of the more tangible kind of thoughts, ideas, visions that you had around this particular location. So I don't know that I feel like that was addressed either. The other question that was asked was around your sustainability initiatives and sustainability priorities, which are specifically in regards to environmental issues and the construction itself. And you didn't answer that last time, and I don't see it anywhere here this time, and you said you'd be happy to answer questions on it. So could you please provide a lot more clarity around sustainability initiatives from an environmental perspective pertaining this particular location, and if there are any priorities that you have that you plan on incorporating as you move forward pertaining to the construction itself, and then I'll circle back with my questions after you answer that.
I'd like to do the PowerPoint presentation, Dan.
Sure. Why don't we pull up the PowerPoint presentation and Ms. Montgomery can talk from that. Again, that's why we brought some additional representatives here tonight, so we can further address your questions. And here you go, Renee, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. I appreciate just 5 minutes of your time to tell you a little bit more about our whole company. So we've been in business successfully for 95 years in this region. We're a family-owned local business. We operate under the various banners shown up there, but our experience and our success speaks for itself. So we don't pay outside companies to do market studies because we've been in business for 95 years, which is longer than most of the companies that do the outside studies. Next slide, please. Or is there a clicker? Go ahead. Am I foiled again? Can anybody help us out with the next slide? Well, I'll just keep talking then, and hopefully somebody will figure out how to get the slides to move along with my mini speech. We're heavily involved in all the communities where we operate, and we give back to the communities we serve. Consistent with our current and historical culture of philanthropy in response to COVID-19, we increased our contributions to over $1 million between March 20 and March 2021. That was unrestricted funds to address the hunger crisis and improve access for food for kids and families. So far in 2022, we've given out grants totaling $475,000. 35% of those grants were applied to ending hunger, contributing to food banks in Prince George's County, and also therefore serving residents of Bowie. In addition to ending hunger, we focus on enhancing outdoor spaces. Additional grants were also provided to Prince George's County to enhance outdoor spaces, and we are looking forward to meeting with the city of Bowie to talk about different enhanced outdoor projects, specifically with the city of Bowie. Thank you, Dan.
Ready.
Okay, so just push the middle button and we're doing. Okay.
All right.
We were ranked number 11 on the Washington Business Journal's corporate philanthropy rating in 2020. Maybe there's just a little delay. All right. Most of our work in Prince George's County and in the surrounding areas has been redevelopment, reinvestment, and revitalization. This is a list of existing sites that's currently been redeveloped or modernized. These are completed or in the process of being upgraded right now. So these are just some of the reinvestments that we've done. We're not just doing new sites. Just have two examples to show you. This is like Old Branch Road. That was, you know, a 1960s, what we call legacy gas station, and we have a modern full-service convenience store there now. And this is our new development at Woodyard Road, which is in Clinton. That's a recent redevelopment that opened, that was also a vacant property assembled together with an old legacy-style gas station. This is an example of an approved redevelopment in Upper Marlboro that's scheduled to go under construction in 2023. You can see the upgraded upscale architecture of the new building, and this is the same store that we're proposing to build at 4100 Crane Highway. So it'll be an upscale, full-service facility. Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
And that's similar to what's being proposed in Bowie.
Yes, this is what we already have permits for in Upper Marlboro, and that is the same store that we would build at 4100 Crane Highway.
Excuse me, can I just chime in really quickly? Because I know you're moving forward with the presentation. When you talk about upscale, is it possible for you to kind of like help us understand maybe what the difference is or what the specific call outs are about an upscale?
I think that's going to come if, look, there's only a couple more slides. There's only a couple more slides. So all of our redeveloped and new stores have upscale interiors with full-service kitchens, made-to-order fresh food, healthy menu options, as well as grab-and-go prepared foods that are made on the premises. We're focusing on fresh, wholesome ingredients that are minimally processed with no preservatives. We were awarded the Best Food Service Launch by Seesaw Decisions in 2021. All of our redevelopments and new stores include multiple sustainability practices that include low-flow plumbing fixtures with automatic shutoff to reduce water usage, LED light fixtures inside and outside to reduce energy usage. We recycle 1/3 of the water we use in each car wash. We use predominantly concrete for vehicular surfaces to reduce the heat island effect. And we use predominantly drought-tolerant native vegetation to reduce water usage and promote local wildlife and pollinators. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a key enabler to our business strategy and operating priorities, and that goes all the way from the very top of our corporate headquarters in Maryland down to each individual location, where every single employee and every single manager at every single location is required to complete our diversity and inclusion program. Rayma Alexander is the Wills Group Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Corporate Communications, and it will provide her direct contact information for any of the council members to contact and work with her on any other questions that you might have. She also manages our philanthropic grant programs and would be a key contact person to bring more local programs to Bowie. And finally, we have many other employee and philanthropic programs that are not included in this very short presentation. There's more information available at Wills Group online. These are just a couple of the recent headlines for our company, and be happy to answer any other questions. We also have our construction director here if you have more questions about the store.
And Renee, let me add one other thing. Can I just add one other from the sustainability and environmental standpoint? Each of the sites that we develop, including this one, okay, most of those sites were developed before current stormwater management practices. Most of the sites were developed before landscape management requirements, and they were definitely all developed before the tree canopy coverage orders was in place. Every time we redevelop a site such as this or some of our existing sites, they're brought into compliance with current storm management regulations. They're brought into compliance with your tree canopy coverage ordinance, and also the landscape manual. So it's basically making the sites more environmentally sensitive than they were before. And that goes into every site that we've redeveloped so far in this Prince George's County and throughout the entire region.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one follow-up question.
Please go right ahead.
Go right
First
ahead.
of all, thank you so much for this presentation. I wish y'all would have led with that. That was great, very insightful, very detailed, very helpful to help us understand just kind of like a little bit more in addition to the construction plan. So that was extremely helpful. And I wish we would have saw that the first time. My follow-up question regarding the presentation that you shared, you talked about enhanced outdoor spaces. Can you help me understand how with the current detailed site plan that you have, and maybe we haven't reached that phase and that's the answer, but how do your sustainability practices tie into the enhanced outdoor spaces, or is that just more focused on communal gathering and kind of creating gathering and community within your stores?
You're right.
Is there a distinction there?
So the indoor-outdoor spaces is more along the lines of revitalization efforts within the community. One of the projects that we did in Clinton, the one that Renee showed, right down the street is Tanglewood Park. That was a significant revitalization project for us, similar to what Councilman Harrison had talked about, in us going into that particular development, and we enhanced that. We made it more a revitalization project. So right down the street, we had the development project, and then our enhancing outdoor spaces group looks for these opportunities that's around the development, and that's what we came with right down the street from the Clinton project was the Tanglewood Park, which was a revitalization effort that we completed in conjunction with the development that we had as well. So that's what that is. It's more of a revitalization of a specific area that's in close proximity to the development. So we would seek those type of opportunities here in the city of Bowie, where we could partner with you or with an organization to look for certain aspects or certain projects or certain developments that need some sort of revitalization effort. So.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. But one last question for you regarding traffic patterns. When you did your study, or based off of whatever data that you're looking at, how are you predicting traffic patterns to increase or change within that area, and how is that supported in your detailed site plan, or have we not gotten to that point yet?
I think our plan is based on the current traffic that's there. We leave the long-term planning to SHA, so our site plan is meant to serve the people that are on the road today.
And with the velocity in terms of the volume, because this is a dash-in, are you not predicting those patterns to increase? Or because Applebee's was a completely different type of establishment. And with this is more of transient. This is more transient establishment. And I know that there's a gathering component to it, but are you not predicting that patterns to increase or change?
That type of test is normally done at the time of the subdivision, which was previously approved on the site.
Gotcha.
But we are anticipating that the traffic patterns would change more or less in terms of timing. It'd be more your morning and evening traffic patterns as opposed to, afternoon and evening. So it'll be changed slightly. But again, we're not changing any of the access to the site in terms of we're not putting an access drive on the 301. We're going to be utilizing the existing private access drive that's between us and the bank building next door. So again, but a lot of that analysis that you're looking for was previously done when the property was subdivided. We're past that, and now we're kind of into the detailed site plan phase, wherein you're basically showing the building, you're showing where the access is, but in terms of testing it for adequacy, that was previously done during the subdivision phase.
Okay, the only thing I would just share, thank you for that, that's super helpful. The only thing I would share with my colleagues, I'm sorry, I might be a little ignorant here, so I'm admitting my flaws up front, but I guess my concern was because the traffic patterns would be changing and it would be more morning and evenings. I mean, 301, we already know what's going on there with those traffic patterns. So I guess if this site plan is not accommodating for any type of change in design, and I don't want to say access because I don't know what the right word is, then that would just be something that I just want to be mindful of, because I think those are probably the worst times for traffic to increase in that particular area, because it is a little bit more quiet and less people on the road in the middle of the afternoon because a lot of people are at work at that time. So that's the only concern that I would have right now, but I think great company, great presentation. It's amazing to see how you'd be a community partner, and I wish more people would have led with that from the beginning. So thank you.
And just in response to that, when they do the test for adequacy, it's done during the peak hours, which is your morning rush hour, your evening rush hour. So the property was previously tested and was found to be adequate to serve the use.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I will try to be quick with my comments because I know my colleagues also have stuff to mention as well. First off, thank you to you guys for coming and presenting. I don't think I was here during the meeting where you guys first came, so good to meet you guys first off, and thank you guys for your interest in being within the city of Bowie. I want to talk about my colleague, Councilwoman Ndebu Madu's comments about traffic. Obviously, we all know the 301 corridor is a problem, right? I'm not going to put that on the onus of the business because that is not your job to really be figuring out the whole 301 corridor holistically, right? And as you mentioned, M.SHA, that's really a conversation that lies there, and I couldn't agree more with that with that frame of mind. Here are some of my concerns, though, and again, I lead with saying that I believe any business who wants to come and be a part of the Bowie family should. And it sounds like you guys have done some great work on the D&I side, on the corporate philanthropy side, and that's all fine and dandy. However, you know, as somebody who represents District 3 specifically where this will go, and as somebody, as my former occupant of the seat and my colleague, Councilmember Gardner used to say, or continues to say, District 3 is the heart of the city of Bowie, right? And we have really the most businesses in the city of Bowie, given the town center, the Bay Sox, you guys, that whole park area as well. But in my belief, I think that 301 corridor is prime for different type of businesses. And while I think Dashin is, again, fine and dandy as a business standalone, I just don't know if that location is best as we move forward here. Obviously, residents in District 3 have been complaining about the quality of business that we have throughout the city. Right, folks want to see more high-end retail. Folks want to see more restaurants. And I'm saying this now as an outgoing member, realizing that this body has to do a lot more in terms of really trying to recruit those folks, right? So I don't fault you guys again for being here and for that, but understand that the residents of our city really do want some higher-end retail, some higher-end restaurants as well. And I do think the 301 corridor, as you guys know from your studies, is prime for that, given the foot traffic that's happening on that road and the development that's planned to happen both north and south of Melford coming online and South Lake on the south end. You know, again, thanks for your interest. The one question I do have for staff is a technical question in terms of when does this go before the county council? Does it?
As far as I know, council member, there's not a planning board date set yet.
Okay. Sorry, second follow-up question. Do we believe that it'll be this year, or are we looking at next year?
Mr. Lynch probably has a better idea of when they're going to submit.
We haven't even, the application's not even been accepted for filing yet. It's in review with Park and Planning. So given that, given the fact that it's probably not going to be till sometime next year.
Yeah. So with that being said, again, we all know how our residents feel about establishments like this. While I don't think most of them have a philosophy reason against it, again, we do want to see more high-end things. I do urge my colleagues to really put pressure on the county council as this does come up, to really reconsider what this does for the 301 corridor. And more broadly, as I've continued to say over the last 3 years, let's just make sure that we're doing everything we can on the economic development side to try to attract more the businesses that our residents want to see here in Bowie. But again, thank you guys. Really excited about the work you guys are doing throughout the region as well. And I wish you guys continued luck.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. Quick question for you. I had looked at the drawings the last time before the last meeting, so it's been more than a New York minute. But I don't believe I recalled seeing any charging stations. How does that fit into your into your product mix and availability?
We were talking about that just before the meeting started. It's really, and I'll let Fenwick maybe answer that better, but it's really on a case-by-case basis. And a lot of that has to do with the location of the station. There's been a lot of discussion, I know at the county council level with regard to requiring EV charging stations for gas stations. And during those discussions, which I sat in at, it was really a lot of times, where's the best place to locate those if they are associated with the gas station. But I'll let Mr. Fenwick maybe address a little bit better because he can tell you specifically what they look for when they locate these EV charging stations. Brian?
Sure. Thank you for your comment. Sure. In regards to EV charging, there are a couple of factors that we look at. It's the size of the property, obviously. It's the traffic, that pattern that comes up through the corridor, as that we had talked about. And we look at our partner. So we do have an EV charging partner that we work with. And that partner and us, we look at locations up through the corridor and see where the best fit is. Down in, I want to say Upper Marlboro, we do have a larger facility that's on the list that Renee had shown. We were working with the council member down there, Council Harrison, down there, and we do have infrastructure for EVs at that particular location. It's a larger facility. It has a significant more parking spaces than the project designated here. We also have another development just south of this, Mill Branch. It's a larger property where we have infrastructure for EVs at that particular location. At this particular location, it's a little smaller for that, and it was not at the top of the list, but it is on the list, and it's something that we're continuing to investigate with our partner, basically, for that.
So when you say it's not at the top of the list, that means you intend to do it or not intend to do it?
At this particular point in time, at this development, it's not planned, but we do have other locations in the corridor that we are looking to put the EV charging stations, because they're larger facilities.
Okay. And the reason is you just don't have the room for it?
Just for the room, and also it has to be a fit for our EV partner as well. So it's a combination. If we can have the infrastructure, if we can have the need for that based off of their metrics, then we look to partner with them.
So is the question about the fit for them and their metrics, is that a volume of traffic they anticipate getting, or is that some other metric? What do you use for their?
It is a volume of what they feel we would receive, and it's also based off of the need and the demographic studies that they have in the marketplace, in addition to having the available real estate to accommodate that. So they want large facilities, they want as many quote-unquote parking spaces as we can to substantiate that. And like I said, at this particular development, it's a little smaller than the larger projects that we have slated up and down the 301 corridor.
All right. So your partner, are they brand specific, or are they open? That is to say, are we talking Tesla with their charging stations that are only available to Tesla users, or is it a multi-system?
It is the multi-system.
Multi-system.
Yes, sir.
Right. And being right on the intersection of Route 50, with a nice convenient place to come off and pull right in. There's no interest in an electric EV.
Did not say there was not an interest. I said that, you know, it's still under consideration at this particular point in
Right.
time.
But if there's not enough room.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That to me is a little disconcerting. I think there's a clear path forward in the automotive industry. I know you guys sell gasoline, and I know that it's going to be a long time before people stop buying gasoline. I'm not sticking my head in the sand. I am, however, very much a proponent of electric vehicles, and I believe that the infrastructure needs to precede the arrival of all of the vehicles, and they need to be demonstrably available to people to imbue a certain sense of confidence that you can buy a vehicle and that you will know where you can plug it in. And when someone pulls up to a gas station and you're waiting the couple of minutes to pump your gas and you look over and you go like, oh, there's a charging station. Hadn't thought about that. That's another trigger for people to move further along down the acceptance and then following through at some point down the road. And I think, you know, here in this city, we've got a couple of chargers. They are not in high visibility priority locations. I mean, there's one at our former city hall. We have one here. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, proximity and visibility are prime. And I think that's an oversight on our part, or on your part, for this particular location. And we talk about, you know, kind of the greening and everything else. You know, I think that would have been a better solution for part of that facility. And mind you, I'm not suggesting that every facility, and I know you've got to make your bottom line, your installation cost work, but at the same time, you know, a single DC fast charger or even a bank of two wouldn't, I think, upset the infrastructure cart from the standpoint of the electric infrastructure that's got to be there to supply the rest of the business. I certainly understand if you're going to put in a bank of 20 and make it kind of a destination charging point. I understand that model as well, but I think the city could really benefit from that. And if we're going to be fueling vehicles, we ought to be fueling all vehicles. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for coming out this evening. I have to really say that I echo all the words coming from my colleagues this evening, from council members Wolfley and Devamadu, and definitely to the Mayor Pro Tem, Adrian Boifo. You know, a few months we had an applicant that came in converting a previous bank into a KFC. And I'm someone who, I don't like to see unused inventory, to say the least. I like to see the repurposing of buildings, as you are doing with this Applebee's, former Applebee's location. I like that, but I have to, you know, say at that time I kind of gave my colleagues some pushback, because I said, you know, the owners of the property have the rights to lease their space out to whomever, you know. I wasn't not a big fan of the KFC that is coming in. I wanted to see, I agree with my colleagues, you know, we have to start looking at more healthier food options and bringing other choices into our community for our residents. I am familiar with your product. I think it's a fine product. I have to say I totally agree with Councilmember Wolfley that if you somehow could find space, move something around, come in with some charging stations, it would be much more attractive to the community. This is a very fine community, and we welcome opportunities and business development. We welcome that. We are open for business, but while we're also open, we're going to ask that that you all hit a few other items to making it much more palatable, because there is some pushback for you guys coming to the community. Not going to kid you. There's a lot of pushback. There are a number of residents that like to see something more on the side of a PF Chang's or something of that nature, more fitting for our community. Dash is a fine product. It could be enhanced a bit. I like the idea, the product that you're bringing to that particular location. It does appear to be much more upscale than some of your previous models or other models. I like the idea that some of the healthy food options on site. I like those things, but I must say it would be much more attractive and much more palatable if you could include the electric charging stations. That would be great. But I do have a few questions other than those statements. I don't know if you covered this, because this is another area that I always go into. Jobs. Per location, let's say this location in particular, how many jobs will this generate? Both full and part-time jobs, roughly, if you have an idea.
25 to 35.
25 to 35 jobs. And of those, how many will be full-time?
Several?
Several?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It depends on the location, and I know there'll be a few managers that will be there.
And that's always good, because they're always, everyone's not, we have a pretty diverse community when it comes for employment, but everyone's not, a professional. So we do want to have employment opportunities for all skill levels and all skill sets.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're evolving into more of a corporate structure where there are more full-time jobs and more control over a location, so we can maintain the quality and the freshness of our new higher upscale menu. So,
Okay.
So things are changing, and
Well,
I could get you more exact numbers.
That would be great if you could share that with city staff, like if you have perhaps an idea of the number of full-time and part-time employees, and even a salary range would be great. It's nice to have employment opportunities come to the city of Bowie, but if they are not paying enough to where residents could actually work them and reside in Bowie, it defeats the purpose. So I would be interested in knowing that for the community as well. But overall, I like I said, I always love to see existing buildings repurposed and not vacant. I hate to see vacant buildings. They become an eyesore. They become a target for crime and vandalism, hangout spots. I hate it. I would like to see more healthy food options, but that's not what we're working with today. We're working with Dash. I like what you're bringing. I think it is a vast improvement on some of the other locations. Jobs are always in plus, and all that I could ask is, I must agree with my colleague. Please take a look at electrical charging. I know even when you get to the county level, you'll find that they'll be much more acceptable if you have that there. Okay? But again, thank you again for coming out this evening. Thank you. And welcome to Bowie.
Any other council members' questions? Councilwoman, please go right ahead.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I believe you all have answered everything, and I certainly appreciate you coming back to us tonight and your presentation, and for being so thorough about answering the questions. And the fact that you're a family-owned business is a plus, so we do appreciate that. And this is certainly not a negative, but from what I've heard from the residents, just from knocking on doors during the campaign season and even up until just last week, recently, they want to see higher end amenities come to our area, sit-down restaurants, just more upscale amenities overall. And right now, we're replacing, the restaurant with a gas station and convenience store. So honestly, I'd like to see a different development project at that location. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that. But again, thank you for being here, and greatly appreciate you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Hearing none, I think I first want to thank you for coming in. Appreciate you going back and bringing back additional information. I do believe the presentation covered a lot of the initial questions we had. As you've heard from several of our council members, there's a question about the type of amenities that people in the city are looking for. But having said that, we also want to make sure that we as a city make sure everybody knows we're open for business. You know, we don't want to discourage anyone from coming here and trying to do business within the city. Because we are open to business, and we do understand your model, and I appreciate all you're saying. I think you heard two really resounding comments. One talking about looking for upskill and that type of thing. The fact of the matter is that we've been looking for that to come to that spot for a while, and nobody has stepped up to that. The second thing is that we understand that as we're moving forward environmentally and wanting to be environmentally sound, which is one of the hallmarks, I think, of the city of Bowie, of our progressive approach to acknowledging climate change and making sure that we move away from fossil fuels in general. I think the comments that several have made about the charging station would really go very far in assisting us with the decisions we make. And I know that may not be a part of your current model, but I think as you've heard from my fellow council members, it really is important as we're moving forward. And you probably want to take a look at that as part of your model. I think that would make a big difference because, again, I think it's important that we look and understand that we want to encourage our citizens to do those things that keep us that green city. And one of those is the charging stations. And so, you know, for us to really move forward on some of the things we want to do and get a greater sense of acceptability from some of the residents as well as the council, I think we really do need to look at that. And go, please.
Sure. Now, obviously, this is a recommendation to Park and Planning that you're going to be making here tonight. And I think Mr. Meinert can tell you that you could include that in your recommendation to Park and Planning, that the site plan be revised to reflect the vehicle charging station. And again, we'll work with Park and Planning to make sure that the plans are amended to show such.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will open the floor to the council members.
You want to make a motion?
I'll open it for a motion if we are going to act on this or
Mayor Pro
not.
Tem's district, you want to make a motion?
What are your thoughts at this point?
I'll make my motion. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to deny detailed site plan 22016.
And I second that. I am. Because I like to see the EV charging stations and some other things added there. And I like to get some of the additional information as far as jobs and things of that nature. So.
It's been moved and properly seconded. I'd just like to open it from a discussion standpoint of whether or not we need to vote on this now, if the EV charging stations will make a difference in that light, and some of the information on jobs, if we should just put it off at this time?
No, I'm not saying.
Or do we want to actually take action tonight?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I mean,
I think it's
sounds-
under-
It sounds
The
like,
people that are going to work there are not going to change. I mean,
Right.
there's the number of people to work in the restaurant and work in the kitchen and run the operation. So That's not something
Yeah,
that we really have control over. We'll be happy to look at trying to put in EV charging station if you put that in your recommendation.
Right. Yeah, sorry, Mr.
Go ahead, please.
And I'm not happy to forward you the information, but it's not going to
It's part of our discussion.
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have sympathy for the applicant. I would not ask them to come back to the council chambers again over what I think we know what the vote is going to be. However, I do, I'm sensitive to the fact that, especially with the green infrastructure aspect, that there may be some room for an amendment here, right? I personally think it's kind of silly to say no, but if you do decide to do it, county council, please give us this green infrastructure, right? That just doesn't make sense in my own personal mind, but, you know, I'm open to, weirder things have happened on this council, so I'm open to discussion.
I have a question on the motion.
Yeah.
So what do we actually know about green technology? I mean, as I understand it, EV charging stations aren't like gas stations where you just plug it in for a few minutes and the vehicle's fully charged. So what would be the function of an EV charging station at a Dash and convenience store?
Well, you want to take it? I'll give what I think my colleague was going on here. I mean, we have this huge federal package that's going to be putting EV infrastructure throughout highways across America. And as the mayor echoed, part of the incentive is we want folks in Bowie to be wanting to drive electric vehicles. That's why we made the strategic decision with BG&E to partner with them to put the infrastructure that we have here at City Hall, right? This just becomes, as it comes online, and as you all know, newer spaces tend to have more traffic because you guys are newer and everybody's interested. But as we have this high footprint of traffic, especially on the 301 corridor, you really want to incentivize those who have EV vehicles to be able to charge their cars there, or those like myself who live right across the street to be able to say, hey, this is a strategic decision that I want to make to get an EV car and charge it literally right across the street. I hope I got that right. Okay.
So a quick Google search indicates that car battery can be charged up to 80% in 20 minutes to an hour, and that's the fastest one currently on the market. Am I making that up, or is the internet making that up? So what is the function of an EV charging station at a convenience store?
Well,
The function,
Go ahead.
if I may, being an EV car driver here, I'll chime in with my real lived experiences. I'm a early adopter, so I have a low mileage, low distance vehicle. It's a Leaf. It's a 2015. So if I go anything too far beyond my immediate commuting area, I have to charge somewhere. So I will pull out my app and I will find out where that charging station is, and if there's one near my destination, and that's what I will do. So if I go to Baltimore, what have you, there are an assortment of places up there, and I will track one down and I will charge, and I'll spend the 20 minutes. Typically, I will drive my number 2 car, a Prius, which is obviously does pretty well on gas mileage, as an alternative because it's not super convenient. However, what we have is it does take about 20 minutes on a high voltage charger. If you live in an apartment, that's your only solution for getting a charge on a vehicle. I have a charger at my house. I pull up in the driveway and I plug in. I only use destination chargers when I have boxed myself into a corner, and I was the last one out of the driveway and the furthest point to go. But what this means is it allows people who are making road trips. It means people who are living in apartments nearby have a place to charge their vehicle, and there needs to be an abundance of them so that there is convenience, and if somebody is at that charging station, there is another one available around the corner. It does provide for business opportunity for somebody that does have a charging station, as your business model suggests in larger facilities where people come in, they will spend their money at a rest stop, not uncommon on the New Jersey Turnpike, to find people there at a fast charger, and you go in and you charge your vehicle, whichever brand it might be, and then you pick up a snack or what have you. So it's the infrastructure that's truly needs to be there to support vehicles. We're not there yet in terms of ubiquity, but we need to be there. and this is kind of the beginning of how you get there.
Okay, that answers my question thoroughly. So from what you're saying, there is definitely practical application to having EV charging stations. People do use them, they pull up, they maybe not get 100%, but they can charge enough. Okay, that answers my question. What I would suggest maybe is a friendly amendment on the motion that we support, the DSP for the applicant, but on the condition of an EV charging station or two. This is, I think, a recommendation to the planning board, so they can take it under advisement, but.
The thing, and I think.
Sure thing.
Councilwoman
Yeah.
Martin was trying to get in. Councilwoman, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was gonna chime in on the EV discussion before you made your amendment and we move forward with the vote, because I don't necessarily know that the EV charging station's 100% beneficial to immediate needs for the community. I think that's more around like environmental justice and pollution and things of that sort. And I think if I hear you correctly, what I'm hearing the council members say is that from an EV charging perspective, if we're talking about their enhancement of outdoor spaces and their community gathering model, then it provides inclusion for people that are electric vehicle drivers to be able to also have more incentive to gather at this particular type of establishment, since it is a dash-in store and not just a gas station. If it was a gas station just only component, I think it would be a little bit just overzealous of us to be asking a gas station to provide EV charging stations. But I think it's more around the inclusion aspect of it and environmental justice, as opposed to direct impacts on our particular community from some of the concerns that we've raised tonight. So I'm fine with Councilmember Estev's suggestions, but I don't necessarily know that EV charging stations are the hill that we need to be dying on.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to rescind my motion.
Okay.
And now, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a different motion here. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and approve DSP 22016 with the stipulation in our letter to the county council saying that we would love to see EV charging stations at this location that mirrors what the applicant has already been doing at other locations across the state.
I'd like to second that motion.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just have one question for Mr. Minor.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
I know there's a motion on the floor. Mr. Minor, I just wanted to ask really quickly, in terms of the detailed site plan itself, and some of the questions that we had earlier regarding to traffic pattern changes and the plan and the infrastructure itself, and I know the applicant said that there was a study that was done previously. In this detailed site plan, is the design set up to support the type of traffic that we would essentially be predicting or assuming would be coming to this type of establishment? And then with the addition of EV charging stations, would it support that amount of traffic? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, council member, the zoning ordinance requirement for detailed site plans basically relies on the standards that are in the zoning ordinance pertaining to site planning. And so it really is internally focused on the circulation and access within the site. So that's really what's under review tonight, is to look to make sure that those lanes are wide enough, that there's enough room to move around, that it flows logically within the site. All of the off-site impacts are things that are not subject to review at this stage of the process.
So let me just ask a quick follow-up question. If they were to add EV charging stations, would everything that you just said still stand in terms of the lanes being wide enough and everything else that you just stated? Or would that not apply at this stage?
Well, you would have to look at the impact on the parking. There's required parking that they have to provide a minimum number. So they would need to have enough space on the site to be able to have an extra space that they could devote entirely to the EV charging. But it's a simple parking space. We have some here behind City Hall, and it's just takes up one parking space.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Minor.
All right, I think, Councilman.
Quick question. And the applicants committed, are committed to putting in an e-way station with the approval from us? Thank you.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote at this time. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor?
Nay.
Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members.
Thank you for coming out.
Mayor, I'm sorry, one question. Councilmember Ndemumalo, was your vote a yay or a nay?
It was a yay.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Moving along with the agenda, we are now at the adoption of Resolution R 50-22, Rules and Regulations of City Boards, Commissions, and Committees.
Mayor, this item was presented at the October 3rd meeting, and Councilmember Steph and other members of council just wanted the amendment of having council members also continue to do the interviews of prospective applicants for committees. So we did make that change on this resolution, and then if council agrees, just need your vote on it.
Okay. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Sorry, I have a quick question on the subject.
Okay, go right
Apologize.
ahead,
I apologize, Madam City Clerk. Where in the document is the change? Is it under
It's on-
membership and tenure?
No, it's on page, I'm sorry, let me get it right here for you. It's on page 5 under number 6, city staff procedures,
okay.
letter A.
Were you able to locate it, Councilman? Okay,
Sorry, I'm giving it a read now. I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly.
no problem, Councilman.
Oh, wait, so you guys are just outright doing the city council interview, so there's no change being made?
Right, we tried to do it different ways, and we just decided, staff just decided
Leave it
to
back in
recommend to
entirely?
go back to having still the applicant attend a committee meeting first and speak with the chair and liaisons and ask questions at that time, and then still schedule.
Understood. To satisfy our open meetings rules, do we need a subsection in here that says after no more than 3 council members can participate in interviews? And then as a council procedure, we can just have, basically honor system. Once there's 3 people in the room, the 4th one has to wait outside in shame.
I was just gonna do it with the honor system. I didn't think we would need to do
Sounds
that.
good.
We could always do that.
Gotcha,
In-house.
understood. I didn't understand that the whole thing was just being left in. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I appreciate it, thank you. I appreciate your
problem.
time on this as well.
Any further discussion?
No, Mr. Mayor, sorry, okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution R-50.
I'd like to second that motion.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Let's move on now to new business and adoption of Resolution R 54-22, Category 2 designation and water service connection to the property at 13314 Forest Drive. City staff?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. This property at 13314, the property owner requested a water service connection to the city's Bowie water system, And the proposed property will be a new residential property, and this location is within the city boundary. So upon receiving the application request, Public Works Department performed administrative review of this application, and we have confirmed that this application has meet the Category 2, Water Category 2 designation requirement, as well as NA code requirement for water service connection. So Public Works staff would like to recommend council to issue conditional approval of Category 2 designation, as well as the water service connection at the subject property. And if there are any questions, I'm here to answer any question.
Thank you. First of all, a couple quick questions. Is this a tear down of an existing property?
No,
Existing
this
house?
is a completely new property. Right now, there's no structure in the current place.
And when was the subdivision done on this lots? On these lots?
It is. We actually checked with M-NCPPC because what we find out is this property is located on lot 20 in the planning lot. Segment. And then in this lot, there are actually 3 property that's located in this lot. And so we checked with M-NCPPC and confirmed that prior to 1982, the properties doesn't need a subdivision designation, and so this property is waived from this subdivision requirement because it's it's prior to 1982.
So it's one owner for of 3 lots? Is that?
No, there are actually three owners in this lot. There are 3 properties that's located in this lot.
So, but we only have an applicant for one?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is one. One is an existing property, and then the other 2. The other from the PG Atlas map, the other 2 has no property yet, and this application.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by has no property yet? Has no.
So there's no structure.
No structure.
Yeah, and this is one of them.
I see. So is this lot that is going to be developed owned by the existing to the person who lives next door?
No, there are 3 owners
Okay.
for the designated property at this lot.
All right. So
And
they purchased the property. Do we know how long ago they purchased the property?
So this property owner recently purchased this property location, and I PG Atlas actually have a record 2021. So the previous owner, I think, is much older. Had this. I haven't looked into the previous owner details yet. So, but the current owner purchased it recently.
And perhaps someone can inform me what. So the zoning for that area allows for what size property? Do we know?
This property, I think, is around 5 acres, I think. Oh,
It's RE.
yeah, RE, right.
All right. And
Residential.
And so these,
Right.
so these lots, these 3 lots, or I guess there are 2 vacant lots and one that has an existing structure. One has been recently sold, and they're looking to put in the water and the sewer there.
Yes.
Okay. And so this, all right. But nobody has recently subdivided that property, correct?
No,
So
because
it's been a long-standing parcel that's been at that zoning level, and no one has changed it for quite some time, correct?
right, yes,
Okay. Thank you. And so there's no, obviously, we have no sewer on that street, so
yeah,
they're taking care of septic on their own,
Yes.
correct?
right. They are building our on-site septical system.
All right. And the other parcel, the one other vacant lot there, there's no movement on that, correct? Is there any indication?
We are
that-
not aware of any movement.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
If I could follow up with that, just a quick question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that if all 3 parcels were connected to water and sewer in that standpoint, that as you wrote in your report, that the effect is negligible because of, I think it's 1,000 gallons or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If all 3 were connected at some point, even in the future, I take it that that would still be a negligible
Yes,
amount?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Joe, there's no change in any of the zoning in that area for any of these parcels, correct?
That's correct. The zoning stays RE.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, do we have any people speaking?
No, Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up this evening, and no emails, comments were submitted for this item.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I have a further question. I trust an announcement was made and signs put out for this announcing, the typical orange signs for people notifying neighbors?
We have we did announce a public hearing, the 10-day public notice according to the code.
Okay, and signs were placed on the street?
You mean for the construction or?
No, for announcing the 10-day notice, was there anything, were there signs placed in the neighborhood?
I don't think so. All we did is a typical public hearing notice.
Okay. Joe, what's when we've had these sorts of things, have we had this before? We just had something similar over at Rustic Hill, and we put up notices of hearings, that sort of stuff. What's the protocol on that?
Well, it's 2 different processes. The one for the Rustic Hill was a county water and sewer plan amendment, and even for those, the city really hasn't had a habit of having stakeholder meetings for those. Those have come normally just to council for public hearing. So we do the notice either way. When we hold either the stakeholders meeting or at the council meeting, we will send notices to everyone within 500 feet, advertising the hearing or the meeting date, as well as posting the property with the sign. This request that's before you this evening is an amendment to the city's water and sewer plan, and that process is handled through Public Works, and Hong, has stated that there's a process in place for notification, and that process was followed.
All right, if I may, I think we ought to be a bit more open or transparent, I should say, in terms of letting the neighbors know about this. And so if I may, I'd like to ask my colleagues, I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next city council meeting so that we can notify the community members there on that street.
I'm open to, because actually just Googled to try to get an idea where that location is. And I support that.
Okay.
Thank you. Along those lines, Councilman, if you don't mind. Is this
Councilman,
something we need
excuse
to
me,
change?
Councilman.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I just pull up the procedure for approval regarding the public hearing from the city code. So according to the code, the council will hold a public hearing within 60 days of receipt of report from the city manager, giving no less than 10 days prior notice, published in one or more newspapers as may be necessary to assure general circulation throughout the city. So the code required basically publishing in the newspapers, which is what we did.
Excellent. Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. I still would like, particularly given the nature of that community, which is it's kind of truly lives up to the, rural estate type of thing. I think they want to be aware and be able to give their voice. I don't think it changes a lot, but I think we have time for that.
So, Mr. Wolfley and council, I understand what you're saying. How would you like for us to notify these people, other than the codes?
I think a postcard would be, or a letter would be sufficient to the residents on that street. Thank you.
Councilman, I would like to ask you, do you believe that this is something that we need to look at with the code, or just on a case-by-case basis of doing this?
I think it's probably a good idea to look into the code in large part because anything that we have going forward with this type of change will likely involve some significant change in the community that people should be aware of, and there's an imbalance here between what is happening for what is a county level effort, which we saw for the Rustic Hill area, and then this one is our own, and it's our neighborhood, and it's our people, and people are not as aware of it, and I think that probably is something that we ought to look at. I think that's a good thing, Mr. Mayor.
Can we look at what it would do? And I'm thinking we're saying that possibly, and it'd be something we'd have to look at a later time, but we're thinking the postcard on the street would be fine?
Yeah, in this particular case, knowing that neighborhood and knowing that it's, what the parameters are and who's back there, to me, it's super simple. I think a postcard is more than adequate. For future endeavors, I'd let staff recommend the best solution because there may be circumstances where it affects somebody beyond, just the neighborhood. But in this case, it's a residential neighborhood with one street and a cul-de-sac. It's easy to be able to identify.
Absolutely.
Well, we can look at the code in a separate situation. And come back, work with the city attorney to bring it back. I mean, we'd have to do, of course, the same everywhere in the city, I would think. From our perspective, you all can make that decision. We'll look into, we'll get the Public Works and those guys and see how quickly we could generate a postcard and get it out there in time. This may push things off till the December meeting, but we'll see how that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Han. Appreciate it.
Do we need a motion for that?
You need to table.
Yeah, motion to table
this until after the postcards were done.
You want, okay.
Second it for me.
I sure will. Did you?
It's been moved and probably.
Oh, did you move? And then I'll second. Oh, you want me to move and then you?
I made a motion to table till the next meeting.
And I second that. Second.
Aye.
It's been moved and probably second at this time. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor.
Nay.
Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, I think we now have the new item, the Mill Branch Crossing.
Yes, sir.
That was added to the agenda? No?
No, there's,
Where are we now?
Do discussion on council
Vacancies and
then-
procedures. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And then that's.
Again, we'll now move
City
to the
clerk.
discussion of council vacancies. And we'll turn that over to staff.
this item was requested to be put on the agenda by council.
Oh, it was? Oh,
I
said
believe it was
we're moving to
Councilmember Wolfley or Councilmember Estev that asked to put on the agenda the discussion on council vacancies. Oh, okay, sorry.
Councilmember Debamati. I think this is the agenda
I'm
item.
sorry, what? Oh, yes, can we repeat that one more time? Sorry.
This is your item on the agenda about the vacancies, council vacancies.
Oh, yeah, the council vacancies, Councilmember Estev and Wolfley proposed the change. So I asked to put it on the agenda so that they could discuss the change that they were proposing. I didn't propose the change.
Sorry, council member, I was under the impression that there was something particular you wanted to do. Informally, Councilmember Wolfley and I have been talking about the two upcoming vacancies that are going to happen on our council, courtesy of our colleagues moving on to greener pastures. And one thing that we've seen in the past is we tend to get a very high number of applicants that apply for these positions. I think we've had 30 some years. And we basically think it's worth having a discussion amongst our colleagues about whether we want to make any amendments to that process to better deal with the volume of applications. One of the things we heard a lot in past years is people feel like they come, they interview, it's a half hour, it's a lot of council time, it's a lot of staff time, but when you have a huge volume, 30 interviews aren't yielding a whole lot of new information that we're not getting in the written applications and their resumes and their cover letters and so on. And so one thing we could suggest is potentially looking at maybe when people apply to fill council vacancies, they can send, the application that they have to submit to staff. Council can review those, but then perhaps council, through a poll or at a public meeting, can identify a top number of applicants that they'd actually like to interview. So maybe we get 30, and we just want to interview like the top 5 or the top 6 or something along those lines, just to avoid both wasting the applicant's time when there's a huge number and to avoid taking up a lot of public time in a process where obviously we can only pick one of 30 people. Does that sound in any way like something my colleagues would be open to?
Well, let me give you my take on that, and I understand you're looking for efficiency here in doing that. But I feel very strongly that all of the citizens should have the opportunity to appear in person and have their particular voices heard, and for us to give them that courtesy of in person and doing that. So I'd really like to see us afford everybody that opportunity, as opposed to just trying to distill it down based upon just a resume, but actually put a name and a face and give them an opportunity to talk with us. I know it is, and from what I've heard, it can be quite laborious and tedious.
Yes.
But I think the citizenry, our citizens deserve the opportunity to do that based upon how many would be coming in, and we'll see that. Because I also want us to encourage as many people as possible to apply.
Yeah.
That's my thought on that. And again, I understand what you're talking about, because you're really just trying to do efficiency and those things, but I really would like to see everybody have that opportunity.
Because some people.
I think that's fair. I'll simply say, clear your calendars.
Yes.
Because we've got 30 hours of interviews ahead of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we may want to knock it down from giving everyone 30 minutes to maybe 15 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know what we had done previously, but you're right, it is a very long process. But where I must say I agree with the mayor, I would want to have everyone affording them the opportunity to speak. Some people present better in speech as opposed to on paper. Yeah, so I don't want to exclude anyone from the process. I think we should be inclusive of everyone and allowing all of them to have an audience.
Fair enough. We will clear our calendars.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
I just have, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and Henri, and I've expressed my opinion that based on our charter, there's only a will of, 3 requirements to apply to become as a prospective council member, or that, you're required to fulfill to be a council member in the city of Bowie. And I agree that everyone deserves an opportunity to interview, and I personally went through the interview process a few years ago when I applied for the District 3 position. And I know it was arduous, and the hours were long for the council members, but I really appreciated that opportunity to answer your questions or answer the questions of the council, and to express my opinion as to why I wanted to apply for the position. So I just believe that it's something that, I know Adrian and I will be leaving this up to you all, and I know it is certainly tedious and time consuming, but we definitely want everyone to be considered who wants to apply. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on this because clearly this won't have anything to do with Ingrid and I in a few months, but I did just want to say this for the record, right? It's a privilege to serve in this body, and going through the process as well. The first time I interviewed for the District 3 seat, the one thing that I was impressed by, and all the interviews go up online, but you find people on the campaign trail, and just as you move around the city, that you just never knew, and they share the same values, and you really wouldn't get that opportunity to have that conversation unless they come before this body. I feel for this body because you're going to have to sit through a lot of interviews. But I also think strategically, Ingrid and I can do whatever we can as we exit stage left to make this an easier process on you guys, timeline-wise, et cetera, and we're happy to talk offline on how we can make this easier. But this also doesn't happen often, right? I don't know if we want to change our rules to preserve what is kind of an important process in the city. So, yeah, that's what I want to say.
No, and just to piggyback on that real quick, Mayor Pro Tem, and if we do decide to make a change to the rules, we should do it, sometime soon, based on what we're talking about now, but not before we're actually moving into the process, if you know what I mean. So the public has much time to consider, what we would like to do if we want to make that change, but don't do it right before the actual process is taking place. Thank you.
I'll just say thank you to my colleagues for contributing. So, thank you.
Well, we'll be watching. I know I will, because I certainly...
Thank you, council members.
No, I do sincerely appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, council members.
So,
Okay, moving.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to clarify as what Councilmember Harrison had mentioned before. Per the charter, the only qualifications that a person needs to be a candidate for this council is that they are 18 years of age, are registered voters within the city limits, or the city, and that they had resided in the city for at least 1 year. If they're running for a council seat, if they're running for a mayor seat, they would have to have lived in the city at least for 2 years. So per the city charter, those are the only requirements for applicants for city council.
And that they reside in the district of which they're applying.
Correct.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much, City Clerk. We will now move on to the added item and the last item, and that is the Mill Branch Crossing. I will turn it over, I believe, to Councilmember Harrison or Joe Minor, maybe.
Councilmember Harrison.
Do you want to address it, or you want Joe to address it? How would you like? Your call, Councilwoman. All right, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. This was in addition to your agenda per council's request. The item is County Council Resolution CR 121-2022, proposed by Councilmember Todd Turner. And this is specifically to create a Mill Branch Revitalization Tax Credit District in the county, under the county code. There is a hearing tomorrow, or a meeting of the County Council's Committee of the Whole, and we provided you with a draft letter if council is interested in supplying Councilmember Turner with a copy of something in writing indicating if you choose to support that resolution. As well, this resolution was introduced for public hearing on the 11th of October, so it will come up later as a public hearing, and so if council wants to use the same letter, we can advance that during the public hearing process. My understanding is that the record is closed as far as the meeting tomorrow, that we cannot submit something electronically, so we'll have to submit it to the county council member's office, and hopefully he can get that in the record at the meeting tomorrow. The request for the revitalization tax district really is something that allows the developer to accomplish a tax credit, and it's based on the improved value of the property under the county's procedures. There has to be some nexus to an economic development priority, and this particular project, we would feel, we would agree with the provisions of the resolution which you have, that does state that this property is an economic development priority. It does have the information that's been provided shows an estimated number of full-time equivalent construction jobs of 1,466, and upon completion, an estimated 186 permanent direct full-time equivalent jobs and 47 permanent indirect jobs. And also over a 30-year period, the Mill Branch Crossing project is expected to produce approximately $47 million in additional revenues for the county. So we've identified in the letter a couple of the things that this developer will provide in terms of regional infrastructure. They're adding turn lanes to Route 301. They're also providing a at-grade pedestrian crossing at Mill Branch Road to allow people to go safely to and from the project across Route 301. And probably most significantly, they're constructing a boulevard roadway into the entrance of the site, which will also be the major entrance to the county's Green Branch Park project. So these are all additional benefits to the community, in addition to those jobs and the revenue that I mentioned, and having the effect of generally supporting economic development in the surrounding areas. So there are good reasons to support the resolution if council wants to do that. And I see Mr. Gibbs, who is the attorney for Mr. Chesley, who's the developer of Mill Branch Crossing. He's here in the audience. You may want to hear from him, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Make one comment if I could, Joe, and just let me know, just, as we talked and we read through this, this isn't any tax revenue being taken from the city itself. This is all county tax, correct?
That's correct. It's a benefit that the county would convey using their tax structure.
Okay, thank you. Please, join us.
Thank you. That was a very good point.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo, and I represent Green Branch LLC, the owner of and developer, the master developer of Mill Branch Crossing. And, you know, let me say that the passage of CR 121 does not confer a tax benefit. There would be a subsequent resolution required after CR 121 in order to confer the benefit through tax abatement or reduction. This resolution does one thing, and that is that it designates Mill Branch Crossing as a revitalization tax credit district. And the owner's hope is ultimately that they could qualify possibly for a pilot, which would be a payment in lieu of taxes, which would result in a temporary reduction in the taxes being paid. But for this type of project, in order to qualify for a pilot, and that would be a subsequent resolution, you have to be in a revitalization tax credit district, and you have to qualify as an economic development project as that's defined in the state statute. And so presently, under the county code in section 10-235, Article 10, Section 2-35, in order to be a revitalization tax credit district, you have to be in an enumerated census tract. And of course, census tracts open up large areas of a portion of the county to the ability to get a tax credit. The hope was to limit it by virtue of having a bill that created another mechanism to qualify as a revitalization tax credit district. That bill is CB 73. That bill has already been introduced. It is going to public hearing on October 25th, I believe, 24th or 25th. We are not asking that the City Council take a position on that bill, but that bill would then have criteria in order to add an individual project as a revitalization tax credit district. It basically, CB 73 amends section 10-235 of the county code to say that an individual project could be designated a revitalization tax credit district if it met certain criteria. So, and if there is a resolution adopted by the county council so designating the property and finding that it meets the criteria as set forth in the tax property article, section 5-216. And so those criteria are spelled out in the actual CB 73. And the whole thing's a little complicated because of the dual process that's ongoing here. You know, my client certainly appreciates the sponsorship of Councilman Turner and hopes that the city will support the resolution. I do want to say a few words about the resolution, if I could. I know you've been here a long time, but it is very important because in CB 73 there are certain criteria that the resolution has to make findings with regard to. The first is that the project satisfies the state statute criteria for a, quote, economic development project. That's a term of art. And so there really are three criteria to satisfy being an economic development project. The first is a timing mechanism, which requires that the property be developed after October of 2012. So that would obviously be satisfied here. The second is that you are in a focus area. And a focus area is either a transit district, an urban renewal area, or a revitalization tax credit district. And so by virtue of approving this resolution, we could satisfy that criterion of the economic development requirement. And the third is that you have to be one of a number of enumerated projects. And this project could satisfy more than one, but the finding is that it satisfies the project as a retail project. This is mixed use, of course. It has over 70,000, approximately 77,000, I think, square feet of retail, a hotel, 190 townhomes, and about 400 multifamily. And so the third criterion would be that it would be a retail project that has 100 full-time jobs and a $10 million investment. And the finding is that this project satisfies that criterion. So it meets the criteria for being an economic development project. And then the ordinance goes on to say it has to do four other things. There has to have been an economic analysis by the county. Now, the applicant prepared an economic analysis by a company called Municap that does economic analyses for TIFs and pilots for various projects in the county. And they found that all of the criteria that Mr. Meinhardt mentioned were met and satisfied. 1,400 or so, over 1,000 part-time construction jobs, over 186 permanent jobs, and substantial, over the 30-year period, $47 million in enhanced tax revenues. And then the county did an analysis as well that had a favorable finding with regard to the economic impact ultimately. Short term, there's a loss of revenue because of the tax benefit, but long term, there are substantially more tax revenues because of what's being paid as a result of the economic development. The other criterion is a public benefit. There has to be a public benefit, and in this project, there are numerous public benefits. There is the road construction that Mr. Meinert mentioned, that being intersection improvements at 301 in Mill Branch, 301 in Ballpark, a through lane across the frontage of the property, a right in, right out off of US 301, and of course the pedestrian crossing from at Mill Branch crossing 301 to the other side. The other substantial public benefit is that when this project went through its preliminary subdivision plan, in its traffic study, it assumed and proffered that it would take care of all of the traffic generated by Green Branch Regional Park. That amounted to 22% of all the trips that this traffic study considered. So there was a substantial benefit gained by the park because its traffic was being considered and factored in, and that resulted in part of the package of transportation improvements that this project is making to the roads, which of course are primarily along 301. The other is the access to the park, Green Branch Regional Park. Previously, the park had a 25-foot wide easement through the middle of the property, and it was the Park and Planning Commission's sole responsibility to build that road through the park. With this project being reapproved, it was relocated to a more favorable location, and it became much wider. It's 50 feet at the circle on Mill Branch Road with 4 lanes coming down, and then it necks down to 2 lanes. The developer is front-ending all of the expense down to his second entrance with a reimbursement of half of that from the Park and Planning Commission. So still, nonetheless, a substantial benefit to the Park and Planning Commission with an improved access and one which they had to build on their own previously. And then, of course, there is the hotel, retail shopping that's going to be available to the community and also to the visitors at Green Branch Regional Park. There's a financial necessity requirement, and the road improvements are in the realm of $8 to $10 million along 301. And that is a massive outlay for infrastructure, and this, if we ultimately get a tax benefit, it would help defer some of those costs or offset some of those costs. And then the final is that there must be a commensurate equity investment by the developer. And so through the cost of acquisition of the land, the cost of public infrastructure that is on site, not just out on the road, but on site, the equity investment by Green Branch is in the realm of $35 to $37 million on their own. So we feel that we meet all those criteria, and we would respectfully hope that the City Council could support CR 121, which is before the council in work session tomorrow. It'll go to public hearing at the end of the month. But once again, CR 121 doesn't confer the tax benefit. It just places the designation on the property so that a benefit could be pursued through a subsequent resolution, which would not occur until the new council is seated in January. So I apologize for being so long-winded, but it's a little complicated.
Council members, any questions you may have at this time?
I got one quick thing.
Council member.
Two quick things. I'm a little frustrated we're getting this last minute. The other component is we're seeing requests for supporting various tax breaks come before us more and more. And what's frustrating, for me at least, is that, as opposed as residents are to new development, the one argument for it is, hey, don't worry, it's generating money for schools, for roads, for amenities, and so on. But when we agree to these tax breaks and we signed onto a joint $30 million one for South Lake, that's the one where they revitalized a bunch of trees and grass into development. And now we're looking at one for Mill Branch, which is also being called revitalization. This is not revitalization. It's taking trees and grass and turning it into development. It just sort of kills the argument. Right? Like the one thing in our quiver for development is the tax benefits. I get that there's some amenities that you're looking at investing in for this, but in my mind, I think these kinds of, frankly, giveaways just aren't worth it. And I think if we ask residents to put up with the negative trade-offs of development, the additional congestion, the loss of green space, I think they have the right to see some tax benefits from that as well, the full benefits that they're owed from the tax rate the county sets. So that's my thought on this. I won't take up any more time.
Councilman DeFore? Wolf?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Esteve. You expressed that more eloquently than I would have. I would like to chime in on on a couple of issues. The first is the timing. As you mentioned yourself, as you spoke here, the whole thing is pretty complicated. But I got this as I was sitting down for this evening's sessions, and that's the time I've had the opportunity to do, quote, due diligence on it, which is not a lot. So that to me is more than a little disconcerting. I'd also like to reiterate the fact that it's not revitalization. And then I would also comment that you folks came to us some time ago, and I've forgotten how long ago it was, but it was a while ago, to have this review, and we provided a vote on that. And at that time, there was no conversation about that, about tax incentives or anything along those lines. And the applicant was willing to develop with the constraints that were required, including the road improvements. No mention was made that the only way this could be sustained was through some, a deferral of taxes or dropping of tax requirements. So I don't see how there's any financial necessity there. So I find it, more than a little problematic in between the timing and not having a chance to really delve into this and look into the real matter. And frankly, I haven't, had that opportunity and won't be able to. The hearings tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. So I can't see myself supporting that, even though it's not my organization's tax money. It is my residents' tax money that is being spent on something, or not being collected in this case, whichever way you look at it. So two things there. I find it problematic at both the timing issue as well as the substance of the matter. So thank you. But I appreciate your being here this evening. I'm sure it was last minute for you too. So I appreciate your presence. Thank you.
It was. Thank you. And I might add, well, there are others besides me, bond counsel and Unicap, who had the real input into the figures. I'm land use attorney. I'm just.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Appreciate you. Question on workforce housing. I know we talked about that when we, initially voted on the Mill Branch project, and wanted to find out how this will support workforce housing.
Well, yes. My understanding is that the effort to provide workforce housing, and I believe affordable, is occurring through the multifamily component. So So the multifamily developer is going to purchase the parcel designated within the project to build the multifamily component. And Mr. Chesley and Green Branch will not be building the multifamily units themselves. It's another developer. And my understanding is that that developer has been in conversations with city staff with regard to affordable rental rates within that project. So I don't know that there is, I don't even know that there's a statute for affordable units for sale like the townhomes. I think it's more associated with rental units. And so I personally, I can get that information for you and see where that is, but I do not represent the multifamily developer. So I don't know what his or her conversations have been with the city. I just know that they have occurred.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you have any additional information on that?
We have been working months ago with the multifamily developer, and he worked through Mr. Buggs, our housing director, and we did meet with the county housing department, and I think there was some real progress made with it. There was information requested of the apartment builder by the county government. He did provide that information to them. I don't know where things stand at the moment. I haven't heard anything within the past, say, month or so, but the last I heard was that the developer or the builder was considering, he's still considering moving ahead with that, but I don't have any other information at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs, for coming out this evening. I'm very familiar with the project, and I want to say what the mayor eloquently said earlier is that, you know, I'm always concerned about my one client, and that is the city and the residents of Bowie. And the city of Bowie only stands to gain here. We are not losing. The entity known as the city of Bowie doesn't lose in this process. In fact, this is an opportunity to bring to the city better amenities, hotel. We've talked about finer or more healthier food options. We have on the table workforce housing. I prefer that term as opposed to low income because it's not low income. It's workforce for teachers, for policemen, for firefighters. You know, we're inviting them to live within the community of where they serve. I am very supportive of the project and also the revitalization tax credit district creation. I could support you on this, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? At this time, first and foremost, thank you so very much for coming out this evening.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. I think just as a general comment to council, whether or not there is any interest in, or will we be providing anything for tomorrow? I think, Joe, if I'm correct, they were looking for potentially a letter or something to support them for tomorrow. Is that what Todd Turner wanted?
I just took the liberty of drafting a support letter, assuming that council wanted to support that. We were not asked for a letter. I think if you make a motion, we can certainly convey that to Councilmember Turner without a letter. But I think it'd be useful if council wants to support this to approve the letter tonight, and we can actually submit the letter as well for the public hearing that comes up. So if you want to sign the letter, approve it tonight, sign it, we could get it to Councilmember Turner, and he can introduce it at the meeting tomorrow. And then we can likewise use the letter for the public hearing input in about a week or so.
Okay. I've heard some of the concerns from council members, particularly on the short notice in which they received this, and not a whole lot of opportunity to go through it. I also heard council members raising a concern about, even though it's not directly Bowie taxes, but that we are still part of Prince George's County as well. At this time, I will open the floor, though, for a motion if we'd like to submit the letter in support of this. So I will, let me just candidly say, I open the floor for any motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman?
yes, I move that the council support CR 121, 2022, with a letter to the county council.
I second. Oh, I'm sorry, Roxy had it. Okay.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. Discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question about the functionality, because Mr. Minor made a point that I just need some clarification on. You're saying that we could send this up to Councilmember Turner without a letter indicating support, yet also supporting it on the back end for the hearing piece? Right, I'm
Yes,
trying to understand the functionality.
That's one way to do it. The record or the opportunity to submit things electronically for the meeting tomorrow is closed. It closed at 3 p.m. today. But I think if council wants to approve the letter, we can get the letter to Councilmember Turner first thing in the morning, and then he can introduce it at his meeting. And then we would likewise use that letter again when the public hearing, when the resolution comes up for public hearing, we could submit that for the public hearing.
That's all my questions.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote at this time. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor.
Nay.
Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and move to closed session.
Second.
Oh my gosh, I'm not finished.
Let him finish, let him finish.
Dude.
Look, you
Hey, thank you.
What's his camera time?
To adjourn to closed session under statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, State Government Article subsection 3-305B3, to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto, and subsection 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. However, before we adjourn, I would like to say thank you to the council, thank you to staff, and thanks to our citizens for being here with us this evening. And we look forward to everyone having a safe week. Thank you so very much.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries.